women's liberation at that time for a student newspaper. If I knew then what I knew now, that I would be aspiring to write, I would have sought out other opportunities to write while I was still a college student, to be able to graduate and say, here are my clips, here's my portfolio, even if it's in little magazines and little websites and local newspapers that not many people have heard of. It's important to have that experience and that evidence of what your accomplishments are and what you have to offer as soon as you can. I would say to art majors, like let's say someone is a ceramics major, and my understanding of most college art departments is that they have their students do this anyway with MF, certainly at the graduate level with MFA exhibits, put together a set of your best ceramic creations now. If your field is painting, put together paintings that you've done. Think about what is your best work, and learn about the pragmatic side of it, like how to market your work, because you're going to need that. I'm not a techie person. I'm not involved very heavily with the world of STEM, but my sense is that engineering students get to do this more of a matter of course, because that's part of what they're learning. They're learning how to engineer different products and different solutions to certain kinds of scientific and technical problems. But for people in the social sciences and the humanities, I think that's just an essential thing to do while you're still in college. I think it's very good that you're getting this experience with podcasting. I don't know how many people are listening to it, but it doesn't matter, because that's something you can put on your resume in the future, that you created a podcast or that you hosted or co-hosted a podcast.
Thank you so much. That was really great and really encouraging and really useful. Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. You're a left Zionist, like me. Can you tell us a bit about Zionism?
Wow. That's a hard one.
That is not the one sentence question. A lot of people try and make it a one sentence question, and I feel like most of them end up being, no matter, like, people mean well, they try and put things in like 2 words or a few words, and then it's like maybe.
Well, I would say on a succinct level, for me, Zionism is a belief in the existence of the modern state of Israel in some form. Now, those 3 words, in some form, are very important, because that doesn't mean any form. That doesn't mean the right-wing form. That doesn't mean Kahanas yelling death to Arabs. That doesn't mean whitewashing the abuses of Palestinian human rights in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. That means that if we're going to have a state, whether we officially call it a Jewish state or not, but a state where the majority of people are Jewish, then we have to have the guidance from core Jewish ethical principles and the Jewish prophetic tradition that I've already mentioned. If it's important for me as an American Jew to believe in tzedek turdaf and to tikkun olam in the United States, it should be important for Israeli Jews as well. And I see that from the Israeli left. Whatever label Israeli leftists use and the Israeli peace movement uses, whether they call themselves Zionist, not a Zionist, anti-Zionist, the guiding principle should be those prophetic traditions. And that means we have to find an end to the occupation. That means the racism against Mizrahi Jews and Ethiopian Jews has to be unacceptable. We have to find ways to stop that. And all of this is a lot. All of this is complicated. All of this is tough, but at least we have to try.
That's right. That's right, yes. Definitely, again, when one's just reading the prophets and reading the Torah, there's a few things they say a lot. And one hears a lot is that they're talking about Israel being a land that's our home, that's important to us. And the second, not an importance to see if do their war, is it's always justice and do right by your strangers and your poor and your widows and your orphans. And that's the foundation. It's not, oh, that's nice, extra. Once you've taken care of all your security, then you get to do a little extra just, but it's that's not, and it is your security in the Torah vision. That literally, that's the only way you get to have a society that lasts.
And it's a very false idea of security, because the current situation in Israel is not secure.
Yes.
My idea of security is not racists running around and yelling death to Arabs. It's not racists in Sheikh Jarrah forcibly moving Palestinians out of their homes in East Jerusalem. That's not security. That's racism. Racism is not security.
And it's nothing secure. Maybe the racists feel more secure, but for the Arabs and for the other vast majority of Israeli Jews and for everyone else, it's just not security.
It's not Zionism. It's not what I think of Zionism. I would say that one of my heroes on the Israeli left is a man named Rabbi Ari Gasherman, who I had the honor of meeting a number of years ago when he spoke in the United States. He was born in the United States, and he did something that considered a part of classical Zionism. He made Aliyah. He lives in Israel now, but he did not go to a right-wing settlement. He immersed himself in the struggle to end human rights violations against Palestinians. He's been beaten up several times. Excuse me one moment. He's been beaten up by Israeli police officers. He's been beaten up by right-wing Israeli extremist settlers, because when he sees Palestinians placed in danger, he puts himself between the danger, in front of the danger, to protect Palestinians. Now that is an activist.
Yes.
I don't get near approaching that level of activism. He puts his life on the line. And so he gives me an incredible amount of hope. And he, in one of his speaking engagements, he said that his motivation for standing up for the human rights of Palestinians is that he wants Palestinians to have the same thing that he has, which is citizenship in a state of their own.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. It's amazing. Nat, you've already given a really amazing answer, but tell us a few more things about the situation on the ground in Israel-Palestine and how people in the US engage with the meeting, which disturb you, and a few more which give you hope.
Well, I think I covered what gives me hope. What gives me hope is the activism of people like Rabbi Erich. I would also say that an organization called Breaking the Silence gives me hope. I've heard people from Breaking the Silence speak in the United States several times because they're very candid about their experiences in the IDF and the Israeli army and about how they were put in situations that were very uncomfortable for them and very troubling because of how, for example, how their commanding officers made them interact with Palestinians in ways that they felt were oppressive, and that did not advance Israeli security. That did not lead to more security for Israel. That just led to more oppression for Palestinians. I mean, I think the situation on the ground now in Israel is very upsetting and very troubling and very frightening. I'm glad that Netanyahu could not form a coalition government this time and that he is being put on trial for corruption. And I hope he will be held accountable. And I hope that there's space for the emergence of, if not an explicitly left-wing Israeli government coalition, at least a liberal Israeli government coalition, because what Netanyahu had to offer through Likud was not sustainable. It was unethical, and it didn't really lead to more security. It led to more militarization, more occupation, more of the same oppressive tendencies, which are not good for either Palestinians or Israelis, although the impact on Palestinians is worse. I'll say that another area that gives me hope, even though it's probably not going to pass, is the legislation being proposed by Representative McCollum, which says that if we're going to continue to give the tremendous amount of economic aid to Israel that we do, I think it's like $2 billion or $3 billion a year, we have a right, as American citizens, we have a right to oversight, and we have a right to say that this money cannot go to human rights violations against Palestinian youth and Palestinian children. It cannot go to arresting Palestinian children. I don't know if the legislation will pass, but what I think it does do is it mobilizes interest around the issue, and it creates a larger space for coalition building and solidarity around the issue.
Yeah, thank you. And speaking of that, I could feel like the whole area of security aid for all the countries that it could use a huge overhaul.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. The United States has a very troubling history, I think, of excessive military aid. And this gets back to what you said about red baiting, that in the name of anti-communism in Latin America, especially, but also in Egypt, we have given, and Saudi Arabia, we've given military aid to people who I don't think we have any business giving military aid to.
Yes, indeed. There's no reason when you have like that to sit and a lot of, I know, to cite the prophets again, I think it's from, is this Amos? Shall two walk together if they have not agreed? So if we are giving a